The 1970s was a golden era for rock music, a decade where boundaries were pushed, legends were born, and sounds were crafted that would echo through generations. Among the sea of talent that emerged during this time, 5 bands stood above the rest, not only for their commercial success, but for their immense influence on music, culture, and style. These bands didn't just define the decade, they helped shape what rock would mean forever. First on the list is Led Zeppelin, the band that took blues-based rock and transformed it into something epic and otherworldly. Formed in 1968 and dominating the 1970s with each release, Led Zeppelin was a force of nature. With Robert Plant's powerful wailing vocals, Jimmy Page's masterful guitar work, John Paul Jones's deep musical versatility, and John Bonham's thunderous drumming, they created a sound that was heavy, hypnotic, and completely their own. Albums like Led Zeppelin 4, Physical Graffiti, and Houses of the Holy weren't just successful, they became scripture for rock fans. Stairway to Heaven became more than a song, it became a rite of passage, a guitar shop standard, a cultural reference point. They brought a sense of mystery to rock, blending Tolkien-inspired lyrics with thunderous riffs, and their live shows were the stuff of legend. Zeppelin's music didn't play by radio rules, their songs were long, their structures unconventional, and yet they became stadium-filling icons. They influenced everyone from Metallica to Soundgarden, and their stamp on hard rock and heavy metal is permanent. Their refusal to release singles in the UK, their legendary tours, their deep dive into mysticism and mythology, Led Zeppelin created the blueprint for the epic rock band. Then there's Fleetwood Mac, a band that proved emotional vulnerability and pop craftsmanship could coexist with massive success. Originally a British blues band, Fleetwood Mac underwent a transformation in the mid-70s when Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined the lineup. With Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and Christine McVie, they created a sound that was lush, melodic, and emotionally raw. Their 1977 album, Rumours, remains one of the most iconic and best-selling albums of all time, filled with songs that spring from heartbreak, breakups, and tangled relationships between the band members themselves. Tracks like Go Your Own Way, Dreams, and The Chain turned personal turmoil into universal anthems. Their harmonies were flawless, their instrumentation tight and soulful, and their lyrics cut deep while staying radio-friendly. Fleetwood Mac brought a kind of intimate storytelling to rock that paved the way for countless singer-songwriters and pop rock bands. Their ability to be both fragile and powerful made them relatable and unforgettable. Decades later, they remain beloved by fans new and old. Their music constantly rediscovered and reinterpreted. Fleetwood Mac's influence goes far beyond their hits. They changed how we think about vulnerability in music, and how pop could be just as meaningful as the heaviest rock. Next is Aerosmith, the bad boys from Boston who fused bluesy swagger with hard rock grit and built one of the most enduring careers in music history. Fronted by Steven Tyler's unmistakable screech and Joe Perry's fiery guitar riffs, Aerosmith defined a sleazy, rebellious brand of rock that stood out in a crowded field. Their 70s output, including albums like Toys in the Attic and Rocks, featured a mix of driving riffs, groove-laden rhythms, and unforgettable hooks. Songs like Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, and Dream On didn't just become hits, they became anthems of American rock. Aerosmith brought attitude, style, and a dangerous energy to their performances, and their influence extended well beyond their music. They inspired a generation of glam rockers, hard rock bands, and even hip-hop artists. Their 1986 collaboration with Run DMC on Walk This Way not only revitalized their career, but also broke down walls between genres, laying the groundwork for the crossover culture we see today. But even before that, in the 70s, Aerosmith showed that American rock could compete with the British invasion and hold its own with swagger and soul. They embodied the rock star myth in all its chaos and charisma, and they wrote the songs that made people pick up guitars and dream of big stages. Next is ACDC, the Australian powerhouse that proved simplicity, when executed perfectly, can be devastatingly effective. Formed by brothers Angus and Malcolm Young, and fronted during their 70s rise by the one-of-a-kind Bon Scott, ACDC took the raw bones of rock and roll and stripped it down to its loudest, hardest, most electric core. With albums like High Voltage, Let There Be Rock, and Highway to Hell, they delivered riffs that were unforgettable, choruses built for shouting, and a rhythm section that pounded like a heartbeat. Their music was primal and direct, never pretending to be more complicated than it needed to be. Bon Scott brought a mischievous, devil-may-care charm to his lyrics, singing about booze, women, and rebellion with a twinkle in his eye. And then there was Angus Young, clad in his signature schoolboy uniform, duck-walking across stages while unleashing guitar solos that burned into your brain. AC/DC's music was about energy, momentum, and power, and they delivered it with such consistency and conviction that they became legends without ever needing to reinvent themselves. Their influences felt in countless hard rock and heavy metal bands that came after them, and their brand of no-frills rock and roll continues to resonate with fans around the world. They proved that you didn't need to be flashy or poetic to make great music. You just had to hit hard, play tight, and mean every note. Finally, we have the Eagles, the kings of California cool, who blended country, rock, and folk into a sound that defined a generation. With harmonies as smooth as the ocean breeze and lyrics that captured the spirit and sadness of 70s America, the Eagles became one of the most commercially successful bands of all time. Songs like Take It Easy, Hotel California, and Desperado weren't just hits, they were chapters in a larger story about freedom, fame, heartbreak, and the search for meaning in a shifting world. Don Henley and Glenn Frey were masterful songwriters, crafting tunes that felt deeply personal yet universally resonant. Joe Walsh brought a harder rock edge to the band, adding a bite and bluesy swagger. The Eagles had a way of balancing opposites, laid back yet intense, polished yet raw, romantic yet cynical. Their 1976 album, Hotel California, is a masterclass in storytelling, production, and musicianship, offering one of the most haunting portraits of American excess and disillusionment ever set to music. The Eagles influenced everything from alt-country to soft rock to modern Americana. Their ability to blend genres without losing their identity paved the way for artists who didn't want to be boxed into one sound. They also showed that harmony vocals and thoughtful lyrics could coexist with guitar solos and radio dominance. Whether you love them for their melodies or their message, the Eagles left a mark that's impossible to erase. Together, these 5 bands, Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac, Aerosmith, AC/DC, and the Eagles, defined what it meant to make music in the 1970s. They each brought something unique to the table. Led Zeppelin gave rock its epic scale and musical depth. Fleetwood Mac gave it emotional intimacy and pop elegance. Aerosmith gave it grit, sex appeal, and crossover potential. AC/DC gave it relentless power and unapologetic simplicity. The Eagles gave it reflection, beauty, and storytelling. They each influenced generations of artists and reshaped the genres they touched. From stadiums to dive bars, from record stores to streaming playlists, their music has endured because it taps into something timeless. They didn't follow trends, they created them. They didn't chase popularity, they defined it. And most importantly, they made music that spoke to millions of people across decades. The 1970s may be long gone, but its soundtrack lives on in the bands that refused to be ordinary, that turned their talent into legend, and that continue to inspire anyone who's ever picked up an instrument and dreamed of making something that lasts. Like, comment, and subscribe for daily history and culture content.